Hey, I've had a few uh, requests from subscribers, and they are to resume my midnight meanderings. Never know quite where these are going. It always happens just a few minutes before we start, and so I've got the my bright light on, and I'm hoping that uh, the generator, which you can probably hear groaning in the background, will not let me down. Now, I'm going to be reading from a book. I was almost grieving the loss of this book. It was in the house, it was in the red house, and the red house, as you may know if you follow our videos, was ruined. We lost the roof. The building itself was fine, but we lost the roof, and then followed torrential rain, and everything was ruined. Well, we thought everything was ruined, and this book was in a place that got saturated, and it looked like it, with the water, all of the pages had melded together, and that was the end of my complete stories of Truman Capote. And happily it wasn't so. But look at the state of it. You can see that you can see why I would why I would think that it had been ruined, because when it's lying down like that, and when I touched it, it was actually soaked, and well, it's in a sorry state. But on a whim, I went over tonight, because we're obviously not in the red house anymore. We're staying in our little guest house. We're in one room camping out because we've been pretty busy. Well, I wanted to read the story that he called, this is Truman Capote, and he wrote a story called A Christmas Memory, and I think he wrote this in 1956. And Truman Capote was something of a tortured person, had his great problems. He was gay, and enjoyed a strange kind of life. But the early part of his life was spent in a house. Let me see. It doesn't say where this house is, but it was a large country house, and he lived with under the care of an older lady in her 60s. He was 7 years old at the time that he wrote this, and he wrote it of his association and his friendship and his real love for this old lady. He called her his friend throughout the story, and she called him Buddy. And she called him Buddy because that was her best friend from when she was a child. And the first Buddy died, and Truman Capote became the second Buddy, and they were best friends. And the description is very touching, because she's a lady that's just not quite all there, but she's not all there in the most wonderful way, and she bonds with this child in a terrific way. So you'll forgive me if I'm looking down. I'm trying not to let you look at the top of my head, but I'm looking down, and the book is in a bit of a sorry state. It's it's marked, and I'm lucky to survive, but it did, and I'm very happy for that. So I'm just going to read you a few things out of this book, because the words are just so beautiful, the way that he's put it together. And for those who enjoy these meanderings, then you'll forgive me if I meander. Imagine a morning in late November, a coming of winter morning more than 20 years ago. Consider the kitchen of a spreading old house in a country town. A great black stove in its main features but there is also a big round table and a fireplace with 2 rocking chairs placed in front of it. Just today, the fireplace commenced its seasonal roar. A woman with shorn white hair is standing at the kitchen window. She is wearing tennis shoes and a shapeless grey sweater over a summery calico dress. She is small and sprightly, like a bantam hen, but due to a long youthful illness, her shoulders are painfully hunched. Her face is remarkable, not unlike Lincoln's, craggy like that, and tinted by sun and wind, but it is delicate too, finely boned, and her eyes are sherry-coloured and timid. "Oh my!" she exclaims, her breath smoking the window pane. It's fruitcake weather. The person to whom she is speaking is myself. I am 7 years old, she is 60-something. We are cousins, very distant ones, and we have lived together, well, as long as I can remember. Other people inhabit the house, relatives, and though they have power over us and frequently make us cry, we are not, on the whole, too much aware of them. We are each other's best friend. She calls me Buddy, in memory of a boy who was formerly her best friend. The other Buddy died in the 1880s when she was still a child. She is still a child. "I knew it before I got out of bed," she says, turning away from the window with a purposeful excitement in her eyes. "The courthouse bells sounded so cold and clear. And there were no birds singing. They've gone to warmer country. Yes, indeed. Oh, Buddy, stop stuffing biscuits and fetch our buggy. Help me find my hat. We've 30 cakes to bake." And then the story goes, and it shows how they gather all of the ingredients, and they do it, and they have little money, and they have collected pennies here and there, pennies which they hate, because over the pennies, they really didn't like the pennies because they earned the pennies by killing flies. So that's a part of the story there. But they go and they finally have all of the ingredients for their cakes, which they bake every year, and it's a big thing. So let me get to that point. Now, once they've done all of their collecting of the ingredients, they then have to get the final ingredient for these cakes is whiskey. So I said, of the ingredients that go into our fruit cakes, whiskey is the most expensive, as well as the hardest to obtain. State laws forbid its sale, but everyone knows you can buy a bottle of whiskey from Mr. Ha Ha Jones. And the next day, having completed our most prosaic shopping, we set out for Mr. Ha Ha's business address, a sinful, to quote public opinion, fish fry and dancing cafe down by the river. We'd been there before and on that same errand, but in the previous years our dealings had been with Ha Ha's wife, an iodine dark Indian woman with brassy peroxided hair and a dead tired disposition. Actually, we've never laid eyes on her husband, though we've heard that he's an Indian, a giant with razor scars on his cheeks. They call him Ha Ha because he's so gloomy, a man who never laughs. We approach his cafe, a large log cabin festooned inside and out with chains of garish, naked light bulbs, and standing by the river's muddy edge under the shade of river trees where moss drifts through the branches like grey mist. Our steps slow down. Even Queenie stops prancing. Queenie is a little rat terrier. Even Queenie stops prancing and sticks close by. People have been murdered in Ha Ha's cafe. Cut to pieces, hit on the head. There's a case coming up in court next month. Naturally, these goings-on happen at night when the coloured lights cast crazy patterns and the Victrola wails. In the daytime, Ha Ha's is shabby and deserted. I knock at the door. Queenie barks. My friend calls, Mrs. Ha Ha, ma'am, anyone home? Footsteps. The door opens. Our hearts overturn. It's Mr. Ha Ha Jones himself. And he is a giant. He does have scars. He doesn't smile. No, he glowers at us through Satan-tilted eyes and demands to know what you want with Ha Ha. For a moment we are too paralyzed to tell. Presently my friend half finds her voice, a whispery voice that says, if you please, Mr. Ha Ha, we'd like a quart of your finest whiskey. His eyes tilt more. Would you believe it? Ha Ha is smiling. Laughing too. Which one of you is a drunken man? It's for making fruitcakes, Mr. Ha Ha. Cooking. That sobers him up. He frowns. That's no way to waste good whiskey. Nevertheless, he retreats into the shadowed cafe and seconds later appears carrying a bottle of daisy yellow unlabelled liquor. He demonstrates its sparkle in the sunlight and says, $2. We pay him with nickels and dimes and pennies. Suddenly, jangling the coins in his hand like a fistful of dice, his face softens. Tell you what, he proposes, pouring the money back into our bead purse. Just send me one of them fruitcakes instead. Well, my friend remarks on our way home, that's a lovely man. We'll put an extra chip of raisins in his cake. The black stove, stoked with coal and firewood, glows like a lighted pumpkin. Egg beaters whirl, spoons spin round in bowls of butter and sugar. Vanilla sweetens the air, ginger spices in it, melting, nose-tingling odours saturate the kitchen, suffuse the house, drift out to the world on puffs of chimney smoke. In 4 days our work is done. 31 cakes, dampened with whiskey, bask on window sills and shelves. Now I'll go through this and they decide who they're going to give them to. They give them to all kinds of people. Now, a new December fig branch grates against the window. The kitchen is empty, the cakes are gone. Yesterday we carted the last of them to the post office, where the cost of stamps turned our purse inside out. We're broke. That rather depressing me, but my friend insists on celebrating with 2 inches of whiskey left in Ha Ha's bottle. Queenie has a spoonful on a bowl of coffee. She likes her coffee chicory flavoured and strong. The rest we divide between a pair of jelly glasses. We're both quite awed at the prospect of drinking straight whiskey. The taste of it brings screwed up expressions and sour shudders. But by and by we begin to sing, the 2 of us singing different songs simultaneously. I don't know the words to mine, just come along to the Dark Town Strutters Ball. But I can dance, and that's what I mean to be, a tap dancer in the movies. My dangling shadow rollicks on the walls. Our voices rock the chinaware. We giggle as if our hands were tickling us. Queenie rolls on her back, her paws plough the air. Something like a grin stretches over her black lips. Inside me I feel warm and sparky, as those crumbling logs, carefree as the wind in the chimney. My friend waltzes around the stove, the hem of her poor calico skirt punched between her fingers as though it were a party dress. Show me the way to go home, she sings, her tennis shoes squeaking on the floor. Show me the way to go home. Enter two relatives, very angry, potent, with eyes that scold, tongues that scold. Listen to what they have to say, the words tumbling together in a wrathful tune. A child of 7? Whiskey on his breath? Are you out of your mind? Feeding a child of 7? Must be loony. Road to ruination. Remember Cousin Kate? Uncle Charlie? Uncle Charlie's brother-in-law? Shame, scandal, humiliation. Kneel, pray, beg to the Lord. Queenie sneaks under the stove. My friend gazes at her shoes. Her chin quivers. She lifts her skirt and blows her nose and runs to her room. Long after the town has gone to sleep and the house is silent, except for the chimings of clocks and the sputter of fading fires, she is weeping into a pillow, already as wet as a widow's handkerchief. Don't cry, I say, sitting at the bottom of her bed and shivering despite my flannel nightgown that smells of last winter's cough syrup. Don't cry, I beg, teasing her toes, tickling her feet. You're too old for that. It's because, she hiccups, I am too old and funny. Not funny, fun, more fun than anybody. Listen, if you don't stop crying, you'll be so tired tomorrow we can't go and cut a Christmas tree. She straightens up. Queenie jumps on the bed, where Queenie is not allowed to lick her cheeks. I know where we'll find pretty trees, buddy, and holly too. With bed as big as your eyes, it's way off in the woods, farther than we've ever been. Papa used to bring us Christmas trees from there, carry them on his shoulders. That's 50 years ago. Well now, I can't wait for morning. So the next part is where they go and get the Christmas tree, and they bring the Christmas tree back. Let me see if I can find the part. Now at Christmas he gets the usual socks and stuff like that, and she has a better haul. She has satsumas. So they go out and they go to fly their kites, which they've made for each other. The wind is blowing and nothing will do till we've run to our pasture below the house, where Queenie has scored or scooted to bury her bone, and where a winter hen's Queenie will be buried too. There, plunging through the healthy waist-high grass, we unreel our kites, feed them twitching at the string like skyfish, and as they swim into the wind, satisfied, sun-warm, we sprawl in the grass and peel satsumas and watch our kites cavort. Soon I forgot the socks and the hand-me-down sweater. I'm as happy as if we'd already won that $50,000 grand prize in that coffee naming contest we entered. My, how foolish I am, my friend cries, suddenly alert. like a woman remembering too late she has biscuits in the oven. You know what I've always thought? She asks in a tone of discovery, and not smiling at me, but at a point beyond me. I've always thought a body would have to be sick and dying before they saw the Lord. And I imagined that when he came it would be like looking at the Baptist window, pretty as coloured glass, with the sun shining through. Such a shine you don't know it's getting dark. And it's been a comfort to me to think of that shine taking away all the spooky feelings. But I'll wager it never happens. I'll wager at the very end a body realises the Lord has already shown himself. That things as they are, her hand circles in a gesture that gathers clouds and kites and grass and Queenie pouring earth over her barn. That things as they are, just what they've always seen, was seeing him. As for me, I could leave the world with today in my eyes. Isn't that an incredible phrase? She says she's realized that all along she has been seeing the Lord in all things that she sees. And she sums it up so beautifully. As for me, she says, I could leave the world with today in my eyes. Thank you, Truman Capote. And this is a sad part. This is well, I'll read. This is our last Christmas together. Life separates us. Those who know best decide that I belong in a military school, and so follows a miserable succession of bugle-blowing prisons, grim, Rivali-ridden summer camps. I have a new home too, but it doesn't count. Home is where my friend is, and there I never go. And there she remains, pottering around the kitchen, alone with Queenie, then alone. Buddy dear, she writes on her wild, hard-to-read script, yesterday Jim Macy's horse kicked Queenie bad. Be thankful she didn't feel much. I wrapped her in a fine linen sheet and rode her in the buggy down to Simpson's pasture, where she can be with all her bones. For a few Novembers she continues to bake her fruitcakes single-handed. Not as many, but some, and of course she always sends me the best of the batch. Also, in every letter she encloses a dime, wadded in toilet paper. See a picture show and write me the story. But gradually, in her letters, she tends to confuse me with her other friend, the body who died in the 1880s. More and more 13ths are not the only days she stays in bed. She refused to get out of bed on the 13th of any month, and she stayed in bed. And more 13ths are not the only days she stays in bed. A morning arrives in November, a leafless bird coming of winter morning, when she cannot rouse herself to exclaim, "Oh my, it's fruitcake weather." And when that happens, I knew it. A message saying so merely confirms a piece of news some secret vein had already received, severing from me an irreplaceable part of myself, letting it loose like a kite on a broken string. That is why, walking across a school campus on this particular December morning, I keep searching the sky, as if I expected to see, rather like hearts, a lost pair of kites hurrying toward heaven. I think that's a lovely part there, that because of the kites which bound them together, that's birth. Obviously at the most poignant moment, it always happens. That is why, walking across a school campus on this particular December morning, I keep searching the sky, as if I expected to see, rather like two hearts, a lost pair of kites hurrying toward heaven. So, I'm so happy that my book was saved. And I'll read some more from those, and I hope you'll bear with me, and I'll be back. Thank you.